Welcome to the Newtown Big Dreams podcast, an interview-style talk show that's your gateway to the fabulous and fascinating people who relocated to start a new life. Whether you're new to our podcast or your city, our fellow neighbors from across Canada, North America, and the entire English-speaking world share their stories of reaching new horizons and big dreams. So sit back and relax as we navigate in-depth and intimate conversations with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, executives, creatives, and anyone who can share their story about their Newtown big dreams. And now, here's your host, Luke J. Menkes.
So, Alex, you've only been in Kelowna for 2 years. Tell us the story of how you got to Kelowna.
Yeah, it's a very non-traditional story, which is fun. At the time, my girlfriend and I were in France. Mm-hmm. And it was end of December, kind of New Year was happening, and we were sitting down and planning out the next year. What do we want to do? Where do we want to go? And at the time, I was freelance writing, just kind of a little bit here and there. And she wanted to take a program in holistic nutrition, and that was offered in a couple places, Kelowna being one of them. And she said, what do you think about Kelowna? I was like, well, I've never been there, but I grew up in the Niagara region of Ontario, so wine region, worked in wine a little bit. So I knew of the Okanagan and what was going on there. And I said, maybe I'll just send a couple of emails and see if I could make some connections. And it was a couple of days later that I connected with a company here, which was Highlight Creative, and they said, we'd love to work with you a little bit, do some writing. Let's start remote and then see where it goes. And then that eventually led me here.
Very cool. So were you on vacation in France, or were you living there?
We were. Essentially, I was just working on the go. So we would spend a couple months here and there. So I did the whole Southeast Asia thing. So we were in Bali, Thailand. So typically for a month or two in each place. Went to Australia, and then Europe was kind of on the radar. So France and Ireland, and this is when it started to materialize a little bit more that travel is awesome, but we would love to have somewhere to call home.
Yeah.
Right. And then so that's kind of what Kelowna's become for us.
Is your girlfriend from Niagara?
Yes.
Also?
Yep.
And what part of France were you in?
So we were very close to Lyon. Mm-hmm. So
that's central?
Yes, central. And we were staying in a place actually called Chardonnay, France, which is the birthplace of Chardonnay wine.
Right. In
France. The village has about 200 people in it. We were definitely the only people that spoke English. And we were actually house sitting for a small hotel there. Wow. So it was in the winter season, they shut it down, but they just need someone to watch it. Yeah. So as a writer, I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. And then my girlfriend was like, that kind of sounds like The Shining, but I'm still in for it also. And
How long did you stay there?
So 2 months in Chardonnay. Yeah. And then we did a little more traveling, spent a couple weeks in Lyon, and then went up to Paris, a couple weeks there. And then we were off to Ireland to visit one of my good friends who was just finishing med school.
I see. And you're a writer. Mm-hmm. What do you write about?
Well, I started off writing pretty much just fiction when I was younger. Mm-hmm. I read, when I was quite young, got my hands on, Goosebump books, and then it kind of was, Harry Potter, and then Stephen King as I got older. And when I realized that, in my career, I wasn't being fulfilled on a creative level, I decided, maybe I can leverage this writing skill. So that kind of dove into, I can leverage some of my business skills and combine that with writing. And I started to write for businesses. So started with just blogs and articles. Then it became, website copy, sales funnels, sales pages. And now it's kind of anywhere in between. I don't do too much writing anymore, but it's still a skill set that I kind of have in my back pocket.
Yeah. Well, it's great. I don't know if you know who Scott Adams is. So he's the creator of Dilbert.
Oh, yes.
Cartoon.
Yeah.
Great guy, really amazing. And one of the things he talks about is if you're above average at 3 or 4 related things, then you can make lots and lots of money.
Right.
So in your case, like marketing, writing, 3 or 4 skills, you don't have to be like the best on the planet. But if you're just above average in each of those things and they combine, then that's the ticket to success, according to several of his books, which I recommend.
He talks about affirmations and visualization quite a bit too as well, right?
Also, yeah.
Yeah. is interesting around that time was kind of when we sat down in France.
Mm-hmm.
We were really kind of, we wrote out a bunch of things that we wanted to do and accomplish and kind of like threw them into the fire, and it did, tons of journaling, and pretty much everything at that moment came true in the next 12 months.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And what's the point of throwing it in the fire?
I don't really know. My girlfriend kind of suggested that we do it, and it just seemed kind of like mystical and powerful at the time.
Right.
Yeah, sitting in a little hotel in France, out in the middle of nowhere. And I don't know exactly why we did it, but there was 5 or 6 things, and that year they all came true.
One of the things, like I've studied religion and things like that, one of the reasons that they have ceremony and ritual is for two main reasons. One is so that you remember the event, it sticks in your mind, and that it also sticks in your mind as something important.
Right.
So your brain is churning on that topic. So I'm sure that's why you would put the affirmations into the fire, because it's something you could talk about, you remember, your brain is
something different than normal.
Yeah. So do you mind sharing what those 5 things were?
For sure. So I wanted to essentially make a full-time income as a writer. So at the time I was freelancing, but it was pretty much just paying for our travels. Really, I wasn't making a lot of money. And that kind of came to fruition probably 3 or 4 weeks later after we did that. I wanted to go to a Tony Robbins event. And, at the time I looked up how much they cost. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to make that work, but, whatever. I wanted to live in British Columbia, which, ended up being Kelowna. I wanted a new SUV. I always wanted an SUV because I'm really into the outdoors, and I always had cars. So I wanted something that at least had like all-wheel drive, and I could go into the backcountry a little bit. And the last thing was, I'm trying to remember here, obviously less significant. The last thing was that I wanted to essentially meet 5 business leaders that could drastically change my career. That tenfold came true within that year. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, many great topics we can explore. So where did you attend the Tony Robbins event? Yeah. And what was it like?
So it was amazing. It was life-changing. I was still pretty skeptical about it overall. And at the time, it was funny. I kind of did a stint back in Niagara working at a winery, kind of helping them out a little bit, planning some of their events. And a couple came in, and these people, they were just like radiating, and they looked successful. And I started talking to them. And when you meet someone, you're like, I want to be friends with these people. Yeah. That's what they're like. So we had this whole conversation. And by the end, they said, we just came from this event, and it seems like right up your alley. And so he made me promise to him. He's like, whatever you do, if you have to sell all your possessions, you have to, fundraise some money, do whatever you have to, get to this event. Like, promise me you'll go. So I was like, okay, yeah.
But you felt a little bit skeptical.
Totally.
At the time.
Yeah,
so
and then after that, I'd made up my mind.
I see. So you mean you had thought about it before they said?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been thinking about it for a couple of years, actually.
Yeah.
So I knew about Tony Robbins because my dad kind of listened to some of his cassette tapes when he was younger. And then I think he was on Tim Ferriss's podcast. So then, I trusted Tim Ferriss. So I'm like, okay. And so it was kind of just one piece after another. And this was the final piece I needed. So I went home and it was kind of, I think I texted my dad and I said, I want to do this thing. He's like, well, if you're doing it, I'll do it.
Oh, wow.
So we decided
to
both
go.
With you. Yeah.
Does he still live in Niagara?
He does, yeah. So we both drove from Niagara to New Jersey, which was where the first event was.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just curious, why did you pick New Jersey? Because I know he does like a tour and go all across.
Yeah. So at the time, it was kind of the closest, and it was happening only in a month or two.
I see.
So it was
makes sense.
Yeah, I really, once I made up my mind, I wanted to do it as fast as possible.
Yeah. That's not a bad drive either.
No.
I grew up in Toronto.
Okay, yeah.
And we have many, many road trips to New York and Montreal, Florida, Virginia Beach, so through upstate New York quite a bit.
Yeah, beautiful drives.
Yeah, especially summertime. It's amazing. It's really great. So I'm kind of like you were. Like, I thought about going to a Tony Robbins event. I would like to, but I'm like, maybe I'll get around to it one day. So what did they tell you that made you say, okay, now I'm definitely doing this from maybe one day?
Essentially, once I knew he did events, and I looked them up, and just like anything else, like probably literally every event or any product that exists, there's positive and negative reviews.
Right.
Always, right? So I read the positive, I'm like, okay, that all sounds good. And then, there's always the people there's the negative reviews, and I read those, and that kind of diminished my confidence a little bit. That's a lot of money, especially for me at that time. And I was like, those negative comments were just enough to keep me at bay. And then when I physically met people in person, and I got to talk to them, and I got to hear their firsthand testimonial and just see how successful and powerful these people were. Yeah. That kind of locked it in for me. It gave me the confidence because it was a real person right in front of me, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And so tell us about the event. Like how is it life-changing?
I didn't really know what to expect.
And when was this now, just to put it in context?
Yeah, this was probably about 2.5 years ago. So just before I moved to Kelowna. Okay. 2.5 years ago. It was in the summer, and it's the best way that I can describe it to other people. It's kind of like a business conference mixed with like a personal development conference mixed with a rave. It's the best way. It's the craziest party that I've been to that was, completely sober.
Wow.
Yeah. And
so do people drink there?
No. Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe some people do, I guess, but not really. Yeah.
Yeah. Does he like advise you like, hey, don't go out and get wasted tonight because we got a lot of work to do?
Yeah. I think it's essentially, it would be very hard too, because the first day when you get there, you learn all these things. It's very, very rapid. You're standing up, you're sitting down. It's like you'll go for like 8-9 hours in a row, and like we didn't take a bathroom break or a food break or anything, but you're so engaged and you're learning so much, and you're learning, why you do the things that you do, which I think everyone finds so fascinating. It's like, if you want to lose 10 pounds and you haven't been able to for 30 years, and someone's kind of telling you this is the secret why, everyone's locked in. But that first day, you just go, and I think we went till 2 or 3 in the morning, and that ended with walking across hot coals. That was the first day, and we had to be back there at like 8 in the morning. Okay. So there wasn't too much room to go out partying. Yeah. Yeah.
Makes sense. Was it hard to get up the next day, or were you so pumped up that?
Yeah, I think there was this crazy energy that I was so excited to. I learned so much the first day. I was like, what's the second day going to hold? And so at the time I was with my dad. We were staying at an Airbnb there, and we were both pretty tired because we made the drive the night before. But yeah, there was a certain feeling in the air of excitement that we weren't too tired.
Right. And is it 3 days?
Yes.
3 days. Wow. And so tell us how Alex was a different person 3 days later. Like, what do you feel changed?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was, this feels like it was decades ago, but really 2.5 years ago, that version of myself, I thought I was an entrepreneur. I would like to say that. And, I read the book that you have on your shelf there, The 4-Hour Work Week. And I was like, that was totally in that mindset, but I never put the pieces together, really. And after that weekend, I just had so much certainty of what I wanted to do and how I might go and do that. Right. So it gave me this roadmap and this confidence that I never really had before.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now? So you're writing, not directly.
Right, yeah. So I've kind of stopped writing. It's part of some of my day-to-day activities, but it's not my main gig anymore. It's funny, I was actually just reviewing this morning all the different things that I'm doing right now, and I had to physically write it out on my whiteboard because there's so much going on, which is amazing. But the main thing I do is creative strategy consulting for businesses and coaching for small business owners.
Nice.
Yeah, it kind of summarizes the majority of it, but it's all based in the realm of marketing and strategy.
Okay. So give us an idea. So what you would do, you come into a small business. Now, are people calling you because they've got problems or because they are stagnant or they're doing okay, but they want to take their business to the next level? Like, what's a typical phone call or inquiry you'll get?
Yeah, so 2 examples that I'm working on right now. One's a newer business, and they're actually an app. And if you're a motorcycle rider and you're listening to this, you should check it out. They're called Tunnit. And yeah, they're a local company. They're doing some amazing things. Like their growth in the past couple of months has been incredible. And essentially, my job there is to come in and give them a different perspective. So if they're making a new campaign, to come in and shed some light, like, oh, maybe have you tried this idea or that idea? Or if they hit a brick wall in a certain area, to give them a couple new tools or way to think about things. And then there's another business that I'm working with right now, and they're a little bit older, and they've hit a slump in their growth cycle. And so my job for that business that's older, I came in and I analyzed their creative process. So how ideas are flowing from start to finish, and how that works on the leadership level, and right down to the people that are doing the work, how that keeps them accountable. So 2 different examples, but it all ties back really into the creativity and the strategic flow of things.
Interesting. So just as an example, I love doing this podcast, and the interviews are great. But this is the 141st interview I've done. I've only released 82.
Wow.
Because when it comes to the editing and posting and doing all the tags,
all the fun stuff,
I find it a little bit tedious. I don't hate it.
Yeah.
But I procrastinate, and I'm busy with a million things.
Yeah.
And I never had to cancel an interview, never had to reschedule or anything like that. I mean, maybe like reschedule because of something going on with family, but never like, I don't feel like doing this. There's no hesitation to do the interviews, but when it comes to the production, it's kind of a bottleneck.
Yeah.
Definitely. So what would you do to like analyze the situation and come up with a plan?
For your specific example?
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me actually, like we have the 4-hour work week kind of sitting close to us.
Yes.
I would really think about outsourcing that process that you don't enjoy. Maybe even find a partner. Like there's some people that really love that side of editing. Like I have a bunch of friends in videography and photography, and they love capturing.
Right.
And then, so let's say they go to an event, then they look at their hard drive, like, 5,000 pictures they have to edit. And then their energy slumps and they're not excited about it. Right. So exactly. I always think if you can find someone that is excited about it, can do it really well, and free up more of your time to do what you love, which seems to be the actual interviewing.
Yes.
That helps both people. And maybe that accelerates the growth of the podcast. And then, the person that's editing can make more money. You're successful. Kind of, it's a win-win.
Definitely.
That'd be my first thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense. And how would you go about making that partnership? Like, how do you find this person?
Yeah, I would start off and maybe find 1 or 2 people that you think could be a good fit, and then just do a couple test projects.
I see.
And so really low risk. Don't come in and with a formal. Yeah. Here's this agreement.
Here's 40 episodes.
Yeah. Just like really light and easy. Yeah. And I think the most important part is there's a lot of people that are working or looking for work, but there's a smaller amount of people who are looking for work and love what you're asking them to do. Right. So I would probably work with 1 or 2 people and see if you hit it off personally. I think it's very important that you work well together, and then just see how long it takes them. Are they excited about it? And then what's their rates? Does that make sense for your business? Yeah. And go from there.
Awesome. Okay. So tell me about your Marketing Accelerator program.
Yeah. So I do a lot of day-to-day stuff on the consulting side with larger businesses, medium to large. And this is for really the solo entrepreneurs or the business owner that has, maybe 2 to 3 employees. And, they've probably paid for marketing services before, but they didn't know what they were paying for and they didn't get great results. This is what the Accelerator program's for. So it's 3 months, 12 modules, and I walk them through each module and I teach them the basics of marketing and branding, and I customize it to their business. So my biggest goal with the Accelerator is to empower them with knowledge so they don't need me on an ongoing basis. Right. So either they're going to be able to do their marketing themselves, or they're going to be able to hire someone internally and train them. Or if they do engage with an agency, they're on an equal playing field now.
They know what they're looking for.
Right.
Then. Yeah. I always say with construction, it's the same. Like, you don't need to know every single skill, but you need to know enough that you can hire the right person. Yeah. And you can tell when someone's doing a great job or a bad job.
Exactly.
Yeah. So is it a video course or? No,
so right now it's in person, and I coach people through it. Nice. Which is actually funny. Like, it's angled as, marketing and branding information, but the real breakthrough or power is actually on the coaching with the entrepreneur. Yeah. Just funny because when you're a small business owner, the person and their life and how they're feeling is such a reflection of how the business is doing, and vice versa. Right. So, and that gets so enmeshed for people. Yeah. I think a lot of my job is like pulling it apart, separating, like helping you brand your business, making it a separate identity, and then helping the person with their motivation levels or whatever they're trying to achieve, a lot of times it's like helping them get up earlier and not hit the snooze button has an amazing impact on their business.
It's true.
It's just this cascading effect. So, that's a really interesting aspect of the accelerator that I didn't first realize. And I've made some amazing relationships with the people that are in the accelerator through that process. And I want to turn it into a video course, as you mentioned. So that's the plan for 2020 is to essentially make a much cheaper version of the course, record all these videos, and every day when I wake up, my mission is to impact or help as many people as possible.
Right.
So I can see where I bottleneck myself. I can only coach so many people one-on-one.
Right.
So if I can make it more accessible to more people, hopefully that makes that business a little more scalable.
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to the snooze button, and a lot of us have that problem from time to time, but I think it's connected to the motivation level.
Totally.
Like, I had a radio job in 2005 in the Cayman Islands, and I had to get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, but it was no problem.
Right.
So I was so excited.
Yeah.
And when I've flown to France or Italy, like when I'm taking a trip, it's no problem.
Yeah.
Right. But when it comes to my sales job, it's like, it depends. Like, if I know I've got people who are really excited and we're going to make a deal soon, then I don't hit the snooze button.
Right.
But when the market's slow and people are like, like I always joke, like some people, they're like, yeah, I might buy this $1 million house, but I think I'm going to go backpacking in the Himalayas for like 6 weeks. You let me know if it's still available when I get back. Like, there's no urgency.
Right.
And so it's hard for me to feel like, okay, I'm tired. I'm going to bounce out of bed for what? You know?
Yep.
So how do you bridge that gap? I think sales, especially for like small business entrepreneurs, people who only have to answer to themselves and their family and their customers, but they don't have a boss saying, hey, you're late.
Yep.
Nobody's going to say anything.
Completely.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you get past that?
So one note that I'll make first, that just I don't want to forget it, is essentially I believe that the mental state that you're in, or your excitement level, or your lack of excitement, right before you go to bed, that is what is replicated when you first wake up.
Interesting.
So the best example for everyone is they remember when they were a kid, waking up on Christmas morning.
Yes.
How excited were you when you were going to bed? Right? You couldn't even get to bed. And you were just waiting for like the first glimpse of some sun so you could spring out of bed, run downstairs. I think that's the exact same thing at any age. How we finish our day and how we're thinking about the next is how we're going to wake up. So, but another thing that I did for a while, maybe for 2 or 3 years, is I tracked about 50 or 60 different personal metrics.
Wow.
I had this whole spreadsheet, and the really interesting thing was I could almost dictate if I was going to have a good or a bad day, depending on my metrics, if I snoozed or not.
Wow.
Right? So for me, that was really powerful. At the time I was in sales, and I would see, if I had started the day with a snooze, even 1 or 2, a lot of the other metrics dropped off. I was less likely to go to the gym. I was less likely to meditate. And when I started the day with saying, I set this goal, which is really, that's what setting an alarm is. I want to wake up at this time.
Right.
And starting the day saying like, yeah, I did it. And
so you accomplished the first goal of the day.
Yeah, and you build momentum, right? I think that's the whole thing, is like hitting the snooze button destroys your momentum right at the beginning of the day. And everyone knows that saying, I got out on the wrong side of the bed. Yeah. How you get out of the bed, that just lays the foundation for the rest in the next 24 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. I have a book. I don't know if I've got it in paperback, but I've definitely got the audio. It's called The Miracle Morning.
Yes. Yeah, by Hal Elrod.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And that helped change my life. So Talk's got an entire chapter on the snooze button. But he really says the way you go to sleep, and he recommends doing affirmations right before you go to bed, especially if you've got a problem with the snooze button. Yeah. And just put yourself in the correct mindset before you go to sleep, and it makes it easier.
Yeah, I remember one thing from that book. He said he would write down in his journal specifically, like, I'm going to wake up at 6:23. Yeah. Full of energy and excitement. Yeah. And I've done that a couple of times. It's weird. It really works.
It does. Yeah. Yeah. And all these little tricks is pretty cool. So what else did you learn at the Tony Robbins conference?
Yeah. So essentially, UPW is like the introductory event, and that is, so it's called Unleash the Power Within.
Right.
And really the main focus of that is to help you overcome fear and learn the basics of how you work emotionally. Yeah. So in that event, day one is completely related to overcoming fears and how fears hold us back. Right. So many people say, I want to start a business, but they never do. Yeah. Because fear is always kind of holding them down. So day one, overcoming fear, and that ends, like I said, with walking across hot coals. Right. And then the next day is all about emotional intelligence, really. So how we all have the same 6 human needs, how to change your state quickly. One really cool tool that I share with the majority of my clients is called the triad. So say, you woke up in the morning and you're not in a great mood. Well, you can change your mood very quickly by following this triad. So you want to change your physical state, so what you're doing with your body. So if I'm sitting in the chair like this versus sitting straight up with my shoulders back, all of a sudden I start to feel different. Yeah. And then what you focus on is kind of the second point of the triangle. So am I focusing on how hard today is going to be, or how exciting it is that I might make a sale? Right. And then the third point of that triad or the triangle is the language that you use. So my favorite example is some people, when they feel anxious, they're like, I'm so anxious, I feel like I'm going to die. Right? It's like, well, are you going to die? No. But you're saying that to yourself. Yeah. And what if instead of saying, oh, you're going to die, saying, well, I feel a little bit stressed right now, but that happens from time to time, and I know it'll pass. Right. Same state, but 2 different ways to describe it with language, and internally or externally. It makes a world of a difference. Yeah, it's been a powerful tool for me.
So it's really becoming aware of the mental states we're going through. Right. Because it's pretty hard to fix something if you're not sure what the problem is.
Yeah. Right. And then realizing that you can fix it quickly because you meet other people that have done it, or you do it yourself. And then once you've done it a couple times, you get this self-confidence, like, I can actually change my state or my conditions or my business, whatever it is.
Yeah, because we've got patterns. And so if I think back on my life, I think, well, how was I able to get out of a bad mood? Well, it took some time. I have these beliefs like, it takes a certain amount of time, or I have to have a beer, or, I need to see sunshine, or, things that might work, but they're arbitrary. And, I can't really do anything in the moment, but these are tools to help you actually do something in the moment. Yeah. Instead of waiting.
Exactly.
Right, for things to change.
And then you could consciously change what those triggers or tools are. So for example, you said sunshine or beer. What if you changed your conditioning to say, every time you went and did 20 push-ups, it made you in like this amazing, positive, happy state.
Yeah. And then that's something you can do, which is actually good for you at the same time.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Do you think procrastination is connected to fear?
Totally. 100%. 100%. Yeah, every time that I delay doing something, it's because there's some sort of fear there. I think for myself and a lot of people, it's mostly the fear of not being enough or failing, right? So,
like, what if I put all this effort in and it doesn't work out?
Right, and it's also easier to say, well, I know if I procrastinate, so let's say I'm going to watch Game of Thrones instead of working on my business, I know for sure how that's going to make me feel in the next hour. Yeah. But if I go do something else, like I need to develop a new product for my business, that's very uncertain. And there's a lot of question marks there and a lot of room for error or failure. So a lot of people will pick the certain option. Yeah. I'm just going to go, have a beer in front of the TV, or, even some people will start cleaning their house or going for a walk because they know for sure they can control that. Yeah. And they know the outcome versus, doing a term paper if you're a student, or, contacting 10 new leads if you're a salesperson. So much uncertainty, so much unknown. What if you get rejected? Yeah.
Interesting. And so how do you get past that? Like, how do you come to not fear the uncertainty? And just say, I'm going to do my best and I'm going to feel good about that at the end, regardless of how people respond.
Yeah. I think one thing is that it's weird. It's the hardest aspect of that is doing it for the first time. And the more times you defeat procrastination and you see that if you take a little risk, you get some reward from it, then you can start to train your brain just like you train a dog. Right. So, the hardest part is just starting. And there's another book, I think it's called The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Yeah. And so she talks about every time you have an urge or an inkling, you need to act on it within 5 seconds. Yes. Or else your brain will have enough time to be like, oh, well, maybe you should just watch TV instead.
Yeah. put it off for a couple hours. Yeah.
Yeah. So she'll say, give yourself that 5 seconds. It's like, she'll even maybe have like a little timer on your desk.
Yeah.
And if you feel like, okay, I really should contact those 10 people and ask if they want to buy my thing. And as soon as you feel like that, hit the timer, 5 seconds goes off.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
And she said, like, even like a rocket launch, like you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
and then
go.
do it.
And she said, it sounds ridiculous, but counting up doesn't work because you could always like justify counting higher.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
But like a rocket, this is a deadline. This is, right? You said it, and it just triggers something in your brain and it becomes a pattern.
Yeah.
Is what she said.
I think another thing too is just being, as you mentioned before, self-aware. Mm-hmm. So once you're aware that procrastination is caused by fear potentially, mm-hmm. and you're aware of it, then you can do things to combat it when it shows up. So most people, procrastination is a daily part of their life and they don't even realize it's happening. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the week when they didn't do their tasks, like, oh, where did the week go? And then they kind of feel disappointed. But when you're conscious and you're aware that procrastination is a thing, when you feel it, everyone can take certain actions. So maybe it's the 5-second rule, or maybe it's that triad I mentioned before. Mm-hmm. Take 10 seconds and change your physical state and your emotional state.
Yeah. And
then you might be inspired to do it. So there's like those little tools. I think everyone will have something different that works for them.
Yeah.
But just playing around and finding what works, and just being flexible and realizing that we're human too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to procrastinate again. That's going to happen. I'm not perfect. No one's perfect.
Right.
That's part of the process. And just, celebrating when you do overcome procrastination. Like, that's a big thing. A lot of people can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Tell us about the hot coals. So I know it relates to overcoming fear.
Yeah.
But, like, how does it not burn your feet?
Right.
Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Here?
So there's some like potential, some people might describe it as like woo-woo stuff going on where like energy fields around your feet, blah, blah, blah. I won't dive into any of that stuff and I'm not too sure about it altogether. But what I do know is that the whole exercise is about getting yourself in the right state and realizing that when you do that, we can achieve so much more physically, emotionally, mentally than we first realized, right? I think that's the whole point of the exercise. The exercise isn't that it's hot coals or it's jumping out of an airplane. It's realizing when we first looked at that, like, oh, that's hard or that seems impossible. And when we get in the right state, we can do it. So to take it to a real world example, let's say you work for a company and your sales quota is, to sell 20 units every year. And then someone comes in and says, I'm going to sell 100. It's like, well, no one's ever sold 100. And no one, like that, you can't do that. If we sell 20, maybe 30. And if everyone believes that, and they there's almost like that fear. It's like, oh, well, that's as much as you can sell. But you change your state on a daily basis. Some guy comes in and he's smiling from ear to ear. He's excited to pick up the phone. He's bursting with energy. He could potentially sell 100 if anyone can, right? Because he's changed how he's thinking, how he's feeling, how he looks, everything about him. So I think that was the biggest takeaway from the coals is it's not the coals. It's overcoming the fear.
Yeah.
And realizing you can.
It's possible.
Yeah.
One of my fears, when it comes to like that example, selling 30 houses versus selling 100, is I think, geez, like it's so much work. Like, am I going to destroy my other relationships and be totally burnt out and be like one of these maniacs that has a heart attack, when they're in their 40s because they're putting so much pressure on themselves? And that's something that makes me think, maybe that's not a good idea.
Right.
To even contemplate. A lot of times that's not true though.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like we're just imagining this negative outcome.
Yeah.
And we hear these stories of people who like, oh, they got a divorce and they totally burnt themselves out because they were a total workaholic.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that concept, that fearful concept?
Yeah, I think we all have these different barriers or levels of fear, right? And when you break through one, there's already another one in place, right? So say you're scared of selling 100 homes, what the outcome of that is on your other relationships. If you broke through that, then there's like 150 or 200. But it gets easier as you go on. So breaking through that first barrier, I think the easiest way to do that is modeling. So finding someone that's already achieved the results that you want to have.
Right.
So if you want to sell 100 homes and you want to have really healthy relationships, find that real estate agent. So maybe let's say there's an agent named Laura in California, and she routinely sells 100 to 200 houses. Yeah. She has an amazing family. Her and her husband, they have this incredible relationship. I would find Laura and be like, hey, Laura, what do you do? Yeah. How do you think? What systems do you use? Because there are real estate agents out there that do that.
Yeah, for sure.
So if we could find them, it's almost like it gives you that confidence of seeing that person in real life. It's not just a book or an abstract thought. It's like, Laura actually does this. Here's her family. It's a real thing. And I'm guessing that she probably thinks differently than the average real estate agent. Yeah, right?
Absolutely.
I'm a big fan of always trying to look at the average of, how's the average plumber think, or the average marketing agency? How do they think, and what restrictions does that create? And who's doing something a little different that's getting bigger results?
Yeah.
I want to model their behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, I know all those things are possible. Like, I'm thinking off the top of my head, I think his name was Ediger. I can't remember, but the guy who started Remax, and it was like just himself, and then it was him and his buddy, and then it became the largest company on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
was a systematic process, and he didn't seem to have any of those mental blocks. Like, geez, I'm busy as hell selling 25 houses. Like, how would I manage an enterprise that's doing 5 million transactions a year?
Right.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's obviously not
Yeah.
possible. Right?
Yeah. On the real estate example, let's say you're routinely selling 20 or 30 houses to individual home buyers, and you want to sell twice as much. It's like, well, I need to do twice as much work, twice as many people. Well, maybe you can meet 1 or 2 real estate investors that buy 10 or 20 houses individually every year, make a partnership with them, develop a relationship. All of a sudden, you're working less and selling more.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I got to keep that in mind. I've got a couple of clients that I've done 5, 6, 7 deals with.
Yeah.
And one of the top real estate agents that I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I have to remember to watch them because to me, it's like mental food.
Yeah.
If I'm watching stuff that I like sports and it's relaxing, but it's not motivating me to sell houses.
Right. Yeah.
So when I watch these guys, like one of them said, he said, the top agents in the country, the United States, have 10 clients, and they love them to death.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And they get referrals from them. So one guy might not be doing 5 deals a year, might be doing 1 deal every 3 years, but they become great friends. And he's like, oh, my aunt has to sell her place. You need to do it, right?
Yeah.
And they get all the referrals because they got their 10 best clients. And they love them to death.
Yeah.
And he said, it's that simple.
It sounds more enjoyable, too.
Yeah.
You just have 10 friends you hang out with all the time.
Yeah.
That sounds like a pretty good business. Take them out in the golf course, go for dinner, celebrate their birthdays.
Exactly.
And then the leads just come in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's great. It's I love conversations like this.
Yeah.
I use this podcast as a way to pick people's brains, and it's great for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
just love it.
I think a lot of people don't have conversations like this enough because there's so much that I've read or watched on videos, and this is kind of bouncing around in my head, but if I don't verbalize it or even writing it down, sometimes those ideas never come out. And then there's also another thought is the whole mastermind effect, where if you get 2 minds and they're kind of collaborating and sharing ideas, a third mind is almost created. And the ideas that you and I think of together weren't possible individually.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Synergy. I think the first place I read something like that was in Think and Grow Rich, in the chapter on Mastermind.
Yeah. And
that's one of those books that I think all the thought leaders have read.
Yes.
Tony Robbins has read it. It's kind of interesting. I like history too. And it's kind of interesting. How did Tony Robbins get his ideas?
Yeah.
And he'll talk about Jim Rohn and Napoleon Hill and things like that.
Yeah. It's cool too once you start to analyze a lot of leaders, whether you look in tech, real estate, whatever it is, you'll notice some trends start to emerge. All of them kind of have very clear goals, ambitious goals. They'll visualize their goals. Some people are into meditation. Some people do affirmations. There's a lot of commonalities that'll start to emerge. You're saying, well, hey, if all these really successful people are doing it, maybe I should do it too.
Exactly. So a little bit more about your accelerator program.
Yeah.
So it's one-on-one.
Yep.
And it's 12 modules. Is it over 12 weeks?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have homework and?
Yeah, every week kind of learn something.
Detail.
Yeah.
How it goes.
Yeah, so really, over the 12 weeks, it starts off pretty basic, I would say. It's very, very open concept, and I start with just the individual and what do you actually want out of your life? Like, have you designed your business in the right way to make you happy? Because that's why we start businesses, right? Like, they should work for us. We shouldn't work for them.
Right.
And so I start, kind of there, and then we get deeper and deeper and more specific. So I go through the exercises of branding. So how to develop your voice and your tone. We look at, well, who's the perfect client for you? Mm-hmm. So maybe can we work with less clients and make more money? Yeah. What does that person look like, sound like? What brands do they like? Can we start to emulate that a little bit in our marketing? Teach them about copywriting. That's one of my tools I pull out. How to make compelling writing that can help drive sales or boost your SEO ranking. So as we go through the course, it gets more and more specific, and every week there's something to do. Mm-hmm. So, okay, go integrate this into your business. Or if I teach them about writing, okay, let's write a blog this week. Let's see, is it structured correct for SEO? Is it still exciting? Are we still driving home a point? Do we have a call to action? That whole process. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. How much time do you spend with them each week?
It's typically 30 minutes to an hour per week. And it's very interesting because I've discovered it's kind of like that real estate person that you just mentioned, where you develop a relationship with them. So the only reason I started the accelerator is because I want to try and empower more people outside of myself. Mm-hmm. And then what I found is we have these sessions per week, but I'm always encouraging people, be like, if you have an idea, text me, or you want to call me, like that's collaborate all the time. Right. So I don't restrict it to that window, which sometimes can backfire a little bit because I'm really, really, really busy. Yeah. But I get so fired up when I see a message come through of someone that's in the accelerator and they're like, I just did this and it worked. Or, hey, I'm hitting this wall. What do you think? I'm going to try this solution. What do you think? Like, I love getting those messages. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to keep encouraging that, and then also seeking out solutions that free up some of my time. Nice.
Very cool. Can you tell us what it costs?
Yeah, so it's $3,000. Okay. Essentially, break it down. You can pay, $1,000 per month. Or my biggest thing too, it's really weird. I would never thought I would say this in business, but my accelerator is not about the money I discovered. Mm-hmm. So I will make it work with anyone, which is, again, it sounds like upfront. That's not really a smart business decision, but I've also heard that the most powerful businesses do things that didn't scale at the beginning. Mm. It's like the Airbnb guys. Yeah. They responded to every single person with like heartfelt messages, and like that's not a scalable model. Right. But that built a really strong business. So I always make it work with anyone if I believe that they're going to be committed to it. So that's the biggest thing. I always meet with them before. Yeah. And I won't take someone's money if I don't think they're going to not play full out. Yeah. Because that's the worst thing. If you're giving them this homework and they come back, I didn't really have time this week, or that's not what this program is about. It's like committing to like, I want to take the next 3 months and radically change my life and my business. Mm-hmm. And if someone's fired up about that, I'll make it work for them. Yeah, totally true. No, I've taken listings that was like a trailer, I could sense that this was a person who was passionate about investing and, was going to lead to other things, or sometimes they just really need the help. Mm-hmm. I recall one trailer I listed and they said, I can't get a realtor to return my calls. Yeah. They don't think it's worth it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And real sweet people, and they made it easy for me to sell. I was able to sell it and help them. So it's not always about the money, it's the relationships are so important. There might be a woman who's trying to sell their trailer and you're not going to make a lot of money selling it. And she's like, well, yeah, thank you so much for helping me. Like, I'm so grateful. I forgot to mention my aunt's moving into town and she's looking for a place in between 2 or 3 million. Right. And she's like, you helped me and you're the only one, so I want you to work with my aunt. Right. Yeah. People have a hard time seeing past that short term. Yeah. Am I going to get enough in the short term? Yeah. Yeah. Totally true. Yeah. So it's a Kelowna-based podcast. So tell us about this. What do you see for the city? I mean, you've been here 2 years. Yeah. You love it. Yeah. Obviously. Yeah. It's already changed so much in 2 years. It's crazy. Like, I wish I could have come here 10 years ago and seen what it's like. But I've been so inspired by Kelowna. It's funny. I didn't hear anything about Kelowna before moving here, which is probably good because I've heard a couple people say, it's just all people like wakeboarding with tattoos, drinking on the beach. That has not been my experience of Kelowna at all. Right. Everyone is so friendly. Like, I noticed it going to the grocery stores. going through the checkout line. It's like, oh, wow, that's a really cool watch that you have. Or like, hey, what are you doing later in the day? And like these people actually care.
Yeah.
And then once I got into the entrepreneurial community, I was blown away. There is so much going on here right now that I can't even keep up with it. The number of events, the number of innovative companies. I see Kelowna becoming the next kind of Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah.
Or almost a version of like this Canadian California, which people say all the time.
Silicon Valley, and we've got the agriculture
totally
as well.
Yeah. And people here seem to be focused on, working hard. But, everyone says work hard, play hard. But people do. They do work hard, and then they go up to Big White, or then they go camping for the weekend.
Yeah.
Like, people have that mentality here.
Yeah.
And I think if we can maintain that and still be really innovative, Kelowna's going to be a special place. Like, a lot of people in the world of business, especially in tech, they think of Canada as Toronto, Vancouver, maybe Montreal.
Right.
Calgary might squeak in there as an honorable mention. I think Kelowna is going to become, like, the place in Canada that people want to go. I think we're going to continue to grow, and it's supposed to be really good for real estate.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
I'm just so excited about it. I've met so many people, talking with the mayor, talking about some of these big business leaders here in Kelowna, which, by the way, everyone is super approachable, which is not the case. Like, I lived in Toronto before. You wouldn't be able to just have lunch with these people.
Right.
And everyone is so optimistic about where we're going. They have these amazing visions that I want to be part of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree when you think about the geography of it. And I was told similar. So I've been here 7.5 years, and everybody said it's really cliquish and so on. So I had to move here for personal reasons. And I decided in my head, there's got to be at least 100 people with me, just like me. Like, if this is a totally cliquish, closed down place where everybody's rude, there's got to be at least 100 people in the exact same situation as me. So I started a meetup.com group called the Kelowna Social Club. And I advertised just a little bit. Yeah. Spent like $20 a week. And I had dozens and dozens of people going, hey, I just moved here from Edmonton. I don't know anybody. I just moved here from Vancouver. I don't know anybody. And by the time I handed the group over, we had close to 500 members.
Wow.
Because I said, in a city of 100,000 people, it's going to be it. Yeah. Even if everybody's a jerk, there's got to be 100 people that aren't.
Yeah.
And it was so easy to just make those connections. And I found it was totally not true.
Yep.
But I think it's just like you attract what you focus on, right?
100%.
And if you're looking for the people that are in the same boat, same mindset as you, you're going to find them.
Yeah.
Quite easily.
Yeah.
But I think it's just such a great place for technology, for agriculture, which is really beautiful. I grew up in Toronto. We would take school trips out to the farm, but it was like a 2-hour bus ride.
Right, yeah.
And it was really nice. You know, kids love that stuff. But here, you drive 10 minutes and you go to Macmillan Farms and the lake, and it's just so beautiful geographically. And there's so many great tech startups and entrepreneurs. That's amazing. So I see technology, agriculture, and then related tourism. And of course, real estate and land development and construction, all the related things that support those two, agriculture and tech. Yeah. And to me, it's just a perfect place.
Yeah, it's exciting to be part of a place that is on that upswing, as opposed to living somewhere where... So I grew up in the Niagara region of Ontario, and that was pretty much built on manufacturing. Okay. So when I was kind of coming of age... The region was trying to think of new ways to grow and inspire the people there, because a lot of the big manufacturing plants had left or shut down. And so they're finding their way with, wine and education and healthcare. But it's not the same feeling as Kelowna. That's why, like, if I ever meet someone that is born and raised in Kelowna and they haven't traveled too much, I always tell them, like, you have no idea how special this place is. Like, a lot of other places are not like this at all. Right. Like, you can't just go out your backyard and climb up a mountain. You can't have your pick of 10 different freshwater lakes at your doorstep where you could go wakeboarding or you could go fishing. Yeah. You can't drive down the road to go to a world-class ski resort. Right. That's not normal things that happen in most cities. Yeah. Yeah. So.
And the cosmopolitan aspect of it, like, we've got some world-class restaurants, right? Nightlife is pretty good. And the wineries are amazing. I don't go that often, but when I have friends visit, that's what we do. It's like, we got to check out these wineries, and they're just blown away, like how beautiful it is. And, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's this. I could confidently say this because I've traveled around a decent amount around the world.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was in France for a while, and Kelowna, I'm very confident that this is going to be a place on the map, the next 10, 20 years. And so that's why I'm always encouraging people, if they want to start a business, they want to do something unique, like plant some roots here. Or if they're feeling a little lost, I have tons of friends in Toronto that, they've been working the same job for 4 or 5 years, living in a condo, not sure what to do. Come out here. There's so much opportunity. Every day I meet 5 to 10 people that could be a new partnership, a new business idea. It's just buzzing and thriving.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
100%. So that house in France, did it turn out to be haunted?
No, luckily it wasn't haunted. However, my girlfriend and I, when we stayed in a similar situation in Bali, apparently where this estate was built on an ancient burial ground. And so the lady that worked there, or she owned it actually, she would tell us, if you just hear people kind of like running across the deck at night, like don't be alarmed, it's just the ghosts and the spirits. And that story is that could be a whole podcast, but we were dealing with like potential cobras in our beds. We were taking care of 60 chickens that all had individual names. That was a whole nightmare in its own. But I think we left the ghosts and the spirits in Bali, and France was still good.
Yeah. So I would guess France is preferential to you if you're going to go for a vacation.
Totally. Next, would love to go back to France, spend some time in the south. Italy and Spain are on the radar for sure for the food and the wine and the culture.
Have you been to Italy?
No.
Yeah, it's my favorite place. Yeah. I would say outside of the Okanagan. I spent 11 years in the Cayman Islands, which is great.
Yep.
But Italy is just amazing. So is France. But something about Italy I just always loved.
Yeah.
Been there 6-7 times.
I think I need to have a schedule to always return to Europe once in a while.
Yeah.
To visualize and experience how they live life.
Yeah.
And how it's focused on more on you and your life and less on business.
Yeah.
If I could bring that back to North America as much as I can, that would make me happy.
Totally. Well, a good tip is it's usually cheaper and easier to fly into Paris because it's such a huge airport. And then I like to get a bottle of wine, loaf of French bread, some cheese, and get on the train.
Yeah.
You go through the Swiss Alps, and it's about 12, 13 hours to get to, the first cities in Italy. But the train is amazing.
Yeah.
And flying to Paris is just cheaper. And then you get a Euro pass, and you can get on any train to any place, anytime. So every time I've gone to Italy, I've done that. I've never flown into Italy, always flown in Paris.
You have a trip leading up to the trip.
Yeah,
essentially.
Exactly. Spend 3-4 days in Paris and then just jump on a train. It's the easiest thing in the world.
Speaking of fresh bread in Paris, which is amazing, incredible, can't even describe it, but I've been really pleasantly surprised, and I have no affiliation with the people at Sprout Bread. But have you been?
Sprout?
Yeah.
No. Is that here?
Yes. Yeah. Definitely check it out. It's kind of right behind where B&A is, almost there. Cannery Street, I think it's called.
Oh, did I just interview those people? Is it a young couple?
I believe so. Yeah. Like I said, I don't personally know them, but they do bake.
Yeah.
And that's the only place I've been where I've had some bread, and that's reminded me of Europe.
Right.
So I have pretty high bread standards, and Sprouts is knocking it out of the park.
Awesome. So cool. Who would you like to nominate? It's kind of on the show.
So I think one person that you would find really interesting, especially talking about where Kelowna might go, someone who has influence to actually change the city, is Jason Kriske.
Okay.
So he is the chairman of Straw House, and I think he started 6 or 7 companies here in Kelowna. And he is one of the people that's influenced me a ton in the past couple of months. He's incredibly kind. All he wants to do is see Kelowna grow and thrive. And recently he's kind of been a bit of an advocate for mental health, which I think is super important in the business world.
I'm just looking at my spreadsheet here because I believe someone else nominated him, which is great.
That doesn't surprise me in the least.
Good thing.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we have to contact someone 2-3 times. They're like, okay, a lot of people want me to come, so I'll come.
Yeah.
So that's great. And does he have a company or an organization so we can find it?
Yeah, so the main organization is Straw House.
Straw House.
Yeah, and there's a couple different companies under that umbrella.
Okay.
But Straw House, it's that office. If you've ever been walking down, it's on the corner of Bernard and Water, and it's kind of a mysterious looking office, and there's like a stormtrooper from Star Wars in the window.
Yeah.
Very mysterious. That's where Straw House is. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Anybody else, or is that good for now?
Yeah, there's another person that I've been working with on and off recently. Her name's Danielle Shaven.
Okay.
Really cool person. I met her in the marketing world and worked with her in a couple different capacities, but her and her mother started their own business called Cara Lily Finery. And so
Cara Lily?
Yeah, Cara Lily Finery. And they make these really unique jewelry pieces.
Neat.
Yeah, which is like, well, Alex, why are you so interested in jewelry? They do make guy stuff as well, too. So cool lapel pins and bracelets. But yeah, I really admire how she's balanced, having a 9-to-5 job and also being an entrepreneur on the side. That's something that always, gets me excited. Going back to my roots of first reading the 4-Hour Work Week and trying to design a life that works for you.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a great conversation, Alex.
It has. It
Had
really
a lot
has.
of fun.
Yeah.
And you gave me some ideas and some good reminders, stuff I know I should be doing. And it's really motivational for me. So I appreciate your time very much.
I appreciate your podcast and you taking the time to talk to me, and incredibly grateful to be here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Newtown Big Dreams podcast with your host, Luke Menkes, and his authentic guests. And we love our listeners and hope you subscribe now to learn more about the amazing journeys of our incredible guests who relocated to find a new town, big dreams. And remember, make your dreams big.